welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We'll talk a little bit about how you can get started with your involvement with the Pomerantz Career Center during your first year or even your first semester on campus. And actually, a lot of things that we'll be discussing today, you can even get started with this summer. So several things you can even get a jump start on. My name is Alicia Jones, and I am one of the career advisors with the Pomerantz Career Center. This picture that you see is a picture of the Pomerantz Center building. So if you've been to campus before, we're located right outside the big Brain Rock, and then the Career Center is on the third floor of the Pomerantz Center building. So at the Career Center, we believe that students really should complete 4 essential career development steps, and you'll see those listed on the slide there. Explore, prepare, experience, achieve. And certainly as a first-year student or a new transfer student to Iowa, several of you might be within that explore stage, and that's perfect. That is a great place to be because that's going to allow you the time and allow you the space to really start identifying who you are as a person. What are your interests? What are your abilities? What are your values? And what occupations and career paths align with those things. And so those are all conversations that we can have with students as they're starting to think about how do they connect to the world of work and what's out there in terms of all those different options that are going to be some of those best fits for them. So, what are our top 5 tips? Well, the first thing that you can do, again, right away, is to complete your Handshake profile. So Handshake is our online system for all types of jobs and internships. So jobs on campus, including work study positions, part-time jobs in the community, internships, and full-time jobs can all be found on the Handshake system. Now, at this point, all incoming students should have access to their Handshake account. So you can go to the Career Center website. You'll see the website listed on the slide there. You'll see a little Handshake box, and then you'll click that and log in with your Hawk ID and password. And you'll complete your profile. And once you've done that, then you'll have access to all the features of the system, including doing some of that job searching. So if you will be searching for a position your first year on campus, you can definitely start looking for those positions now on Handshake. And Handshake is a free system for students to utilize. Step 2. Exploring our career communities. So at the Career Center, we advise by career community. And you can think of this more as a career interest area that you might have. So you'll see there's 10 listed here. They're not necessarily specific to any one particular major. They might correlate with a variety of different majors, but we advise this way so that we can encourage students to think beyond their major. We know students are going to ask, well, what can I do with my major? What are my options? We know that will be a question, but what we also want students to think about is how does what their interests connect with apply to them. And in many cases, you can pursue one type of occupation and have a variety of different degrees that would go towards that. You probably all know people that are doing work that maybe doesn't seem like it would be as connected to their undergraduate major. And that's very common just in the course of career development, career interests. You change as a person over time. But advising by this way, students tend not to get too bogged down in the major itself, but spend a little bit more time reflecting on, well, what are my interests and what type of job duties do I want to be doing and what type of work environment is of the most interest to me. So as a career advisor, for example, I advise students with environment and sustainability interests, health and wellness interests, and then science research interests. So I can have conversations with students on a daily basis that really vary in terms of where those students might be at. I can meet with a first-year student who's interested in health and wellness, and I can share resources with that student so they can find out more. I can meet with a sophomore who's preparing his resume for maybe a lab position on campus. And I might meet with a junior English major who's interested in environment and might be looking for environmental advocacy or environmental education type internships. So no matter where you're at, these are all the different types of conversations that are happening in our office. And at our website, we do have specific web pages for each career community. So depending on where your interests might fall, or if you have several, feel free to explore as many as you want. But within each of those career community pages, you'll find exploration resources, you'll find information for related student organizations to get involved with, and you'll find a variety of job and internship resources too. So this is definitely a great place to start for that exploration. Step 3. So talking with a career advisor is really, I think, kind of the hallmark of what we do at the Career Center. We want to have these conversations with students. And I think oftentimes students feel like they need to have it all figured out before they come to see us. And that is definitely not the case. We want students to come in with these questions, to express concerns or hesitancies or excitement, all those things that are wrapped up in really making some of these big decisions. And so certainly having that conversation with a career advisor is one way where students just gather information, again, as they're starting to explore majors, starting to explore careers, starting to explore, again, how does that connect with who they are as a person. And definitely helping students just being able to answer that question of what is the best fit for me, looking at, again, who they are as an individual, and then also looking at how do they start building their resume and building their skill set. And so here we're making those recommendations on, again, student organizations to get involved with, leadership opportunities, volunteer experiences, and of course that internship piece, which is so crucial to finding then a full-time job later on. But we're helping to brainstorm and generate ideas and certainly show students some of those resources that we have in place so that they can locate those variety of opportunities. And it's very easy to talk with a career advisor. You can schedule an appointment on MyUI to talk with a career advisor. Right now, we are advising virtually, and most likely we will continue that into the fall semester. But you can still schedule that appointment with us. You can schedule either a phone appointment or a Zoom appointment, your preference. And again, this is something that you can do right now. You don't have to wait until the fall semester begins. So if you want to have a conversation with one of us, let us know. We do advise by career community, like I mentioned earlier. So when you go into MyUI to set up that appointment, it will ask you what your career interests are, and you'll pick one of those career communities. And then from there, it will pop up with the advising availability of those advisors that specifically work with students with those career interests. Another thing that you can think about doing if you are an open major at this point, or maybe you're even feeling that the major you selected isn't the right fit for you. You're already having maybe some hesitation around that. So one of the things that might be of interest to you is taking a career assessment. And we do have a few assessments in place, although I think we have a favorite one, which is our U-Science career assessment. Now, this is not connected to the field of science at all. It is more the science of you. And so what U-Science does is really takes a look at those abilities and those strengths that you have. And it does that through a series of brain games, brain teasers that you would complete. They're timed assessments, so that's how it's getting at that proficiency level. And then it also takes into account your career interests. And so then within your results, you will see occupations that align with both your abilities and your interests. And that's certainly something we would say is a good career fit. You're doing something that you enjoy, but also something that you have the skill for. So I think, again, U-Science is a great place to start if you are thinking, gosh, what's out there? What's the best fit? There's so many things in terms of options. Where do I even begin? So certainly think about that career assessment as a way just to narrow that world of work down and find some occupations that would be some of those potential fits for who you are. Now, you can access the U-Science assessment at our webpage. We'll see that a little bit later. I'll show you a screenshot of what that looks like. But it's a free assessment to take. You just need to sign up to take it with your Hawk ID and email address. And then we'll get that information from you and then send you something in return so that then you can take the assessment. Here too, this is something that you can do right away. If you wanted to do this later on this week, that would be fine. If you would want to wait until you're into your first year, or even later on, we have seniors that take the U-Science assessment. That's definitely something that you can get to later on too. So tip number 4, start your resume. So some of you may already have a resume in place, which is fantastic. If you don't, or even if you do, we do have a variety of resume samples available on our website. And of course, if you do plan on applying for any type of on-campus job, work-study position, part-time job in the community, most likely you will need to submit a resume. But also sometimes even volunteer experiences might ask for one, or if you're interested in job shadowing, or sometimes even a student organization involvement, they may all ask for a resume. So it's always good to have one ready for when you might need it. So at our website, as I mentioned, we've got a variety of resume samples. And we also have these listed as Word documents that you can easily edit to make your own. So we try to make it as very easy as possible for students to develop that resume. And so our samples are very typical of what a standard college student resume would look like. It includes some of those most typical categories and sections, and then it's already in a layout and a format that we would recommend. It meets some of those guidelines and suggestions that we have for how a college resume should look. So certainly you can view those samples. We do have, they range from a resume that would be ideal for an incoming first year student that only has high school experiences to showcase at this point, which is fine, all the way then through seniors that might have a variety of experiences and might be using it to then find a full-time position. So you can browse through those, pick the one that meets closely who you are and what you're looking for at this point. And we do offer resume reviews. This is a common reason why students actually come into the office anyway. We definitely want to make sure students have a strong resume as they're applying for those different positions. So we can offer feedback through an appointment, through our online form that you can complete to ask for a review. But there's definitely a variety of ways where we can look that over and then get back to you with some of that feedback and suggestions for improvement.
Alicia, can I jump in?
Yes.
Floating voice
Yeah.
here. A question about the U-Science. Can you take
Yes.
assessment more than once?
Can you take it more than once? I think that you might be able to do that. I guess I'm not really sure. I suppose if someone took it and they really felt like this doesn't represent me, or sometimes it even depends on your state of mind when you're taking it. If you're feeling flustered about something, or upset, or you just have other things happening and you try to take it, that can result in maybe some skewed answers. I don't know. That is a good question. I think that could be a possibility, though. Again, it's a free assessment, so I think there would be that opportunity to probably
Okay.
take it again.
Makes sense, I suppose. But so, based on your answer, probably uncommon to take it again if you feel like it captures people's interests.
Yeah, I would say that. I have not heard of any students needing to retake it or feeling like it did not represent them. We all took it in the office so that we could talk to students about it and give our experience with it. And personally, I felt it to be very accurate and very reflective of who I am as a person. And I think students are feeling that same way too.
Thank you. All right, that's all for now.
Thanks. Okay, and then our last tip, number 5, so taking a Career Center class. So at the Career Center, we do have a variety of academic courses, so they are 4-credit classes that center around leadership development and professional development. And there's 2 classes in particular that I think are great fits for new students. One is our Major and Career Exploration class. And so this is a nice fit for someone who is an open major, or for that student who feels good about that major, but now they're really starting to think about, well, what can I do with this? What are my options? What are my possibilities? So through this class, students actually take the U-Science assessment. That's one of the assignments for the class. And then they are exposed, though, to employer panels. So we invite local professionals to share their stories of career exploration, to share more about their job duties and what they do, and just provide some advice and feedback and tips. And it's just that opportunity to more thoroughly research, to really dedicate that time to figuring out some of these things, to really spending that time to research majors, research occupations, do some of that internal reflection and see how things are aligning with one another. So this is actually a 7-week course. So it's offered twice a semester, since it is just 7 weeks in length. It is 1 semester hour of credit, and we have a combination of both online and in-person sections for this class. And this is something that still may be available even for this fall semester. So if you're looking at your schedule and you're already thinking, wow, I might maybe want to make some changes here, you could certainly still see if the CCP 1300 class is still open. Another class to consider is our Career Leadership Academy. So this is actually a 2-semester program. So the first semester, phase 1, takes a look at who you are as a leader and what's your leadership style, and then also looking at how do you lead within a team, so taking into account some of those group dynamics. Then the second semester is that phase 2. So this is looking more at how do you lead within the community, and there's a community service project associated with that. And then also looking at some of those employer expectations in the workplace. So what will employers expect of you as you are coming into a new internship or a new full-time position? So certainly that first semester of CLA, again, this is something that you can get started with right away. It's a 3-semester hour credit class. You don't have to take the classes consecutively. So if you wanted to take 1 semester, maybe then take a break, you come back to that second semester later on, that's completely fine. And both of these classes are offered during both the fall and spring semesters. So I've talked a lot about our website. Here is a screenshot of what that looks like. So the careers.uiowa.edu. Now, a lot of the things that I've mentioned are within that students tab that you'll see at the top. So here is where you'll find those various career communities. So if you see that Get Started box on the left navigation menu, that second link, Find Your Career Community. Here's where you can do that exploring and find those particular career interests that you have to learn more. Under that Explore box, you'll see the assessments link. So if you are interested in youth science, that's where you can access the form to complete, to fill that out. And then under the Prepare box, going down that left nav menu a little more, you'll see that resumes and related materials. So again, that's the section where we have all of our resume information and those sample resumes that I discussed. So I do want to allow Mary Catherine to talk a little bit about her experience with the Career Center. She, again, just completed her first year at Iowa, and she had come to visit us a couple of times for a resume review. So I'll allow her just to say a little bit about that.
Hi all, I am Mary Catherine. Like Alicia said, during my first semester at Iowa last year, I did utilize the Pomerantz Career Center a few times for resume building. They have drop-in hours, which are really nice. You don't have to set up an appointment. You can just walk in, and there are a bunch of peer mentors waiting for you to come in to help you build your resume. And I had a resume out of high school, so I had a lot of high school activities. I had joined a few student orgs, so I had a little bit of college material to put on it, and they really helped me format it so that I had a strong resume for any clubs that needed a resume, or just to have one on hand, because you never know if you want to apply to something later in the year. And I found it really helpful because I didn't know that for a resume you should really explain the student orgs you're in or the past jobs experiences you've had. So they really helped me build my resume in that way. And it was very nice to work with them. They were really nice. They were really patient, because I definitely am someone who likes to stare at something for a little bit and then decide what I want to do with it. And they were really patient in that sense. And I also utilized them over a few days, because I would drop in between classes. So the next day I would come. Sometimes the person I had worked with before was there. If not, I told them who I had previously worked with, and they just picked up with me on where I had left off. So I would definitely recommend using drop-in hours if you want to make sure there's someone there ready for you right away. You could definitely schedule an appointment, but I found it really helpful, and it's definitely something where I will continue to use their help this year, because I have a little bit more experience and I've joined a few more things. So my resume is changing and I'll need to update it, and it's a really great resource, and I would definitely recommend using it.
Thank you, Mary Catherine. That was a great glowing recommendation for us. And I like what you said about coming back to continue to use us. And I think that's one of our main goals as an office too, is that we really want to develop this relationship with students early. The earlier the better, we think. But we want students to realize that they can continue to come back in, obviously, as they progress within their career development and have other questions and are seeking new opportunities. This may be, a source of confusion for them. This is something they haven't encountered before. And we want students to still see us as resource and to still utilize our services. We love having those relationships with students. I know personally, when I meet with students all 4 years of their college experience, I feel connected with that student, and I am invested in what they're seeking then after graduation. So we definitely encourage students to come in, come often, and start that relationship as soon as possible. I will say, in reference to the drop-in hours that Mary Catherine talked about, again, for this fall, we we probably will not have our peer advisors in place, or we may not have our entire team. We may be very limited in the peer advisors that are in the office, and we would be offering probably some very limited drop-in hours. So that could still be a potential option for students, certainly if they had more of a quick question, something that could be answered very quickly. But for the most part, I think we are going to be recommending that students utilize the appointment feature with a career advisor, and again, so that phone conversation or that Zoom appointment. But here too, you can certainly email your resume to us in advance. We can look that over, and then we can have a conversation in person, or face-to-face virtually, about what your resume looks like and some of those feedback and suggestions that we have. So, as I've said throughout the presentation, I mean, we are definitely here to help. And like I said, these are all things that you can get started with right now. If you're feeling very eager just to get the ball rolling, definitely we invite you to do that. You don't need to wait until the fall semester begins. And like I said, things are happening for the most part pretty virtual at this point. But that has not been a problem for us, and we've continued to provide appointments and provide services and answer questions. So we can definitely still assist you. We also do invite you to follow us on our various social media channels. You'll see those listed on the slide. We do have a lot of updates and information and announcements that we share on social media, so definitely give us a follow there. So that concludes the formal presentation, but I want to make sure if there are additional questions that you have, feel free to put those into the Q&A box.